Hello, my name is Christina Davis and I am an elementary education student at the University of Central Florida. This assignment is my Teachers in Action project where I tutored ESE students. For my TIA project, I worked at Apollo Elementary School and this is located in Titusville, Florida. The school's vision is to inspire all children to learn at their highest potential, preparing them for tomorrow's expectations. And this is exactly what I wanted to accomplish with my TIA project, working one-on-one in a group setting with some ESE students. Apollo is a Title I elementary school, and this means that because many of the students come free or reduced lunch and they come from low-income schools, the government and Brevard County funds them extra resources to provide the best education for all students. And this means that they get extra technology, extra funding for their food, in many forms. For example, every single student in the entire school has their own personal laptop that they get to use during the day. And this is actually rare for elementary schools that they have been provided with this much resources. Oftentimes, many of the ESE students do not get as much extra support with their learning in the normal school day. They might see an ESE specialist for about 34 to 45 minutes a day, but that only covers so much. So the question is, how do we help our students who may be sitting during their lessons and not taking anything in that they are being taught? And this is what I wanted to accomplish with the TIA project, is I wanted to pull these ESE students out in a group or on a one-on-one setting for an hour during the school day to provide that extra support on their assignments based on the lessons that they were already being taught by the teacher. So this meant I would pull the assignments that they were all working with, and sometimes the students in the other class, they would still be working on the assignments, but these students just needed that extra support so that they could get those accomplished and that they would do well on those assignments. I completed my hours by working with my students every Monday and Tuesday in my internship class. I started at January 14th and I ended March 1st. February 25th through March 1st was my final internship week in this school, so I was able to get a lot of my 15 hours done during that week as well. When I started working with the students, I began speaking with the internship teacher and got an idea of which students were going to need the support and which students had learning disabilities or were ESE. So she went through each of their IEPs and explained the specific needs for each student that I would be working with, which was very beneficial to me because I got to see what an IEP looked like and know what they said in response to what the students needed. And for example, some of the IEPs showed that they were not specific enough for what the learning disability was. They might not explain exactly what that disability was, but they do explain the accommodations that the student may need during the day. For example, extra time on their testing. The participant demographics, they were students that were 10 and 11 years old in a 5th grade class in Miss Harper's class at Apollo Elementary. All of the participants, they were classified as ESE, and their disabilities included what I mentioned before, unspecified learning disabilities and ADHD. And some of the unspecified learning disabilities might have been they just had organizational disabilities where because they were so unorganized and they couldn't focus because of that, and they wouldn't be getting any of their work done. According to the IDEA, these students, they have access to a free and appropriate public education. None of the students I worked with needed to be restrained in a self-contained environment, but they did need that extra support so that they could be back on grade level. And because of IDEA, they have granted access to this public education for free, and they have all of these services for free. During this assignment, I worked with a total of 5 different students who were all below grade level due to a learning disability. Here's my service in action. This photo on the right shows me working with a group in the pod between all of the 5th grade classes. And this particular picture shows that I was working with them on their studies weekly, which is actually their social studies in the class. The other students were working in the other classroom on the same thing, but these students just needed the extra support. And for example, one of the young girls I was working with had ADHD, and she actually was very quiet. However, she would drift off and be in her own little world that she wouldn't get any of her work done. But because I was able to work with them and help read to them and have them read to me, they were able to focus on their assignment and actually get some of it accomplished. I also worked on other assignments, including the Eureka math lessons and questions related to the authentic literature we were reading. For example, we read Mr. Limoncello's Library in the class as well, and they had questions they had to answer each day on that book. And sometimes the students wouldn't be answering any of the questions, so I would pull them off into the group setting so that I could help them answer those questions. I had an eye-opening experience while working with these students with disabilities. For example, throughout my life, I grew up and I never struggled in school, so I didn't have the empathy and sympathy that I needed to have for those students who did. And it wasn't because I didn't want to, but it was because I didn't understand. So being able to work with these students who did have these learning disabilities and were behind grade level, I feel so much more equipped to help my future students who may have these disabilities. Initially, I was very nervous to work with these students because I thought I wasn't going to be able to help them and advance them in their abilities because I had never been in their shoes before. But after realizing it only just takes someone just to work with them and show that you care and just to guide them and use scaffolding methods through the assignments that they're doing to really help them succeed. Working one-on-one with the students gave me the opportunity to provide those deeper explanations for the concept they were learning versus when they were in the whole class. It was harder for them to pay attention to the teacher teaching to the whole class. They needed to be pulled out and worked with individually to give that extra support. I am enrolled in the Teaching Exceptional Students class at the University of Central Florida. By completing this assignment, I better understand the concepts of working with students who have learning disabilities. Some disabilities might not be as complex or severe as the other, but they still deserve recognition so that all students have the opportunity to succeed. I also better understand what goes into the making of an IEP. For example, I was able to sit in on an IEP meeting where the guardian was there as well, and they discussed with the ESE teacher and the teacher of the student in their class to see what would be best to provide that extra support for the student. And that really helped me a lot to learn about IEPs because I had only read about them in books before. I also discovered that ADHD was so much broader than I expected. For example, normally you think of ADHD as a student who might be hyperactive, and they might need, for example, flexible seating so that they can move around, or they might even need to stand up while they do their work. But sometimes ADHD is just that they get distracted very easily. They may be really quiet and they may look like they're sitting there paying attention and listening because they're very quiet, but they're off in another land that you do not know and not getting any of their work done. So I learned a lot about the different disabilities and how they are so broad and not one student is going to be exactly like the next. After completing the tutoring with these students, I gained such an understanding of what it means to be a civil volunteer. I used to think I wasn't good enough or well prepared enough to complete this task to work with these students one-on-one and in a group setting. But what I realized is they just need someone who, like me, I am in school to be a teacher, so I am getting the training to work with them, but also someone who just cares about them and shows that they care about them so that they want to succeed and that they have value and they feel the self-confidence. Because sometimes what it takes is that they gain a better self-confidence and self-esteem, and that might be why they don't want to do their work because they got a bad grade one time and they think that that's it. They can't do any better, but sometimes that they just need that extra support to show them that they can do better. I think this should be a requirement for all UCF students to complete some level of civic service because it just provides such a powerful insight to how other people think. And this experience really motivated me to do more research on the students that have disabilities in my future classroom. For example, if I have a student who might have dyslexia in my future classroom, I may want to read up on it and read books about how I can better help them when teaching them phonics and teaching them other things in the classroom. I recommend all teachers and individuals to work and engage hands-on with ESE learners to understand that they have needs that can cause them to be under grade level, but not that they are incapable. I believe that all students are so incredibly brilliant and smart that they can do what they want to do, and sometimes they may get discouraged because they have a learning disability that holds them back. But what I can do is help them believe that they can succeed.